Lakes. Speaker, the latest number from Stats Canada shows that under this Liberal government, Canadians have seen one of the steepest falls in living standards in our country's history. This means our quality of life has now dropped to the same level it was 8 years ago, while the unemployment rate is up from last year. After 9 years of this Liberal government, Canadians are worse off. They're working twice as hard to take in half as much. In fact, Canada's economy has stagnated, and Liberal policy is to blame. So why is the Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, it's amazing to hear the Conservative talking down Canadians, Canada, and our prospect, Mr. Speaker. Around the world, Mr. Speaker, people are talking about Canada. You know what? As my colleague said before, we have received the largest level of investment, Mr. Speaker, in our economy. You know why? Because we have the best workers in the world, Mr. Speaker. Right. Because we have renewable energy. Because we have trade agreement with our G7 partners, Mr. Speaker. Right. Because we know how to make things in this country, Mr. Speaker. And while they talk down Canada on this side of the House, we will keep pumping up Canada, we'll keep being proud for this country, and we'll bring jobs in this country.
The Honourable Member from Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the Liberals are ruining the economy. Production of made-in-Canada goods and services has declined for the fourth straight quarter, the latest drop by 0.7% in the first 3 months of this year. Canada remains last of 37 market-based countries that haven't recovered from before the pandemic. In fact, Canada underperforms the American economy by the widest margin since 1965. And sadly, Canada's economy continues to stagnate under this Prime Minister's uncontrolled spending and punishing taxes. So why is the Prime Minister spending so much to make Canadians so poor?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I would like the Honourable Member to talk to the hundreds upon hundreds of Canadian companies who have come with me to many markets around the world where we have excellent trade agreements, where they are taking their services, they are taking their goods, they are taking their innovations, they are taking their creations, and they are selling. They are selling Canada around the world. And you know what they're doing in doing that? They're creating jobs. They're creating jobs from coast to coast to coast. We need to keep talking up the Canadian economy and Canadian businesses, and we're doing this on this side of the House, and I want to know why you're not.
I'm certain the Honourable Minister wasn't referring to the Speaker, but I would encourage all members I would encourage all members, please, to ensure that the questions and answers are directed through the Speaker.
She's only been an MP for like 9 years.
La Métis Matane-Matapédia. The cost of natural disasters is increasing every year as a result of climate change. We need to ask ourselves whether taxpayers should foot the entire bill or whether it would be better to make major responsible players pay for part of it. The state of Vermont has just passed a law to make oil companies pay for damage caused by climate change. This should be an inspiration to Canada, since oil companies are the main emitters of greenhouse gases and are making record profits from pollution. Then why not force them to compensate financially for adapting to climate change? The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for her question. And that, contrary to the Conservatives, she believes in the importance of fighting climate change. I would like to remind her that we are the only G20 country that has gone after oil and gas. We're the only ones to have done so. We've announced a $530 million fund with the Canada Federation of Municipalities that is devoted in working with our communities. It will help 1,400 communities to fight against climate change. The Honourable Member for Avignon, La Métis Matane-Matapédia. On one side of the border, Vermont is passing a law to force all companies to pay for climate damage. And on the other side of the border are the Liberals and the NDP, who just last week voted to give $30 billion in additional tax breaks to these same oil companies. Whilst Vermont wants to force them to pay for the damage they caused, Canada is rewarding them. I thought the Liberals were in favour of the polluter pays principle. Why is it the polluter does not pay principle with oil companies? the Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quite the contrary, Mr. Speaker. Over the past 2 years, we've added a standard on clean fuel, what the Conservatives committed to doing last election, but then they flip-flopped. We also fought against emissions. We are currently putting a ceiling on greenhouse gas emissions for oil and gas, the only big oil-producing country in the world to do so. Our emissions are so low that the last time they were so low in Canada was just after the Canadians won the Stanley Cup. So it's been a long time. The Honourable